All right, welcome back to International Business. And I want to give you a couple of quick updates. I really appreciate the involvement online. You guys are doing fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for being online. I also want to point out that so far everyone is doing, well, I don't want to say everyone, but in general, we'll say. In general, everyone is doing very well with the quizzes and the chat room, etc., and the discussion board, I should say. And I also wanted to point out that this week and a little bit of last week have been a little bit off in terms of the schedule. So instead of having Thursday's class the normal time, 10 a.m., we're going to have Thursday's class tomorrow at 11 a.m. Okay, so just an FYI there. And I hope to see you there. Let's get right into it. Any questions or comments thus far from anyone online? Any questions or comments? All right, fantastic. Today we're going to be talking about the oblique attack. An oblique attack versus a frontal attack. And I'll get into the definition. I'll get into a little more descriptive. I'll get into describing it a little bit more as class goes on. But essentially, here's the premise for today's discussion. If you don't launch into a new market, an international market, if you don't launch into a new country, a new market within that country, you can rest assured that your competitors will. You can rest assured that your competitors will. And not only that, you're leaving money on the table. Let's look at it like this. Instead of looking at international markets as an opportunity, I want you to look at international markets as money you're losing because you're not there. It's a different mindset. It's kind of like saying, hey, listen, Randy, hey, Ben, hey, Artemis, I've got this opportunity for you where if you do it, you're going to make an extra 30% on your money. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but you might not, it might sound attractive, but it might not be the trigger that you're looking for. What if I told you, all right, Ben, all right, Randy, all right, Artemis, if you don't go international, if you haven't identified a target market outside of the U.S. for your product or service, I'm going to take money out of your coffers. That's a different mindset. And that's the way I look at it. I'm going to take money out of your pocket. Because to me, leaving money on the table is the same thing. That's in my myopic view, it's very much the same thing. Leaving money on the table is the same thing as taking it out of my pocket. And it's different. It's a different mindset than, oh wow, look at the opportunity that we have. And of course, it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity, but I really want you to think about how much money you would be leaving on the table. And it's proven that companies that have an international presence perform with about 30% more revenue. Imagine you had an additional $3 million or $30 million. If you had $10 million in revenues, add $3 million to it. If you had $100 million, add $30 million to it. If you had $100,000 in revenues, you're a small startup, now you've got an extra $30,000. Is that meaningful? That's the question I have for you. Is that meaningful? Yes, there's no debate about it. That is a meaningful number. And now let's take it one step further. Look at Coca-Cola. I would say 20 or 25% of Coca-Cola's revenues are here in the United States. 20 or 25% of Coca-Cola's revenues are here in the United States. Where's the rest? It's everywhere in the world. You see how Coca-Cola, I mean, imagine if Coca-Cola had decided, you know what, we're going to stay here, we're going to stay put. It's the difference between what's going on right now. Let me give you a real world example of what's going on right now. You have Burger King, and you have, I believe it's Wendy's. Burger King and Wendy's. Burger King is concentrating, and I might have the two mixed up, but let's just say it is Burger King is concentrating on domestic revenue. They're concentrating on becoming more efficient, bringing down their costs, improving their customer service, and increasing their profits to shareholders and opening up more stores domestically here in the U.S. versus Wendy's, who has decided they're going to grow their business more internationally. They have decided that they are going to expand, extend, and accelerate sales overseas, which is going to increase their costs, lower their profits, probably hurt some of their service, some of the customer service that you would get from them, and yet they have decided that they are going to aggressively, here and now today, they are going to launch more stores internationally. What is it called, and I don't know if you remember the term that I gave you, but what's it called when you expand your market share? What's it called? The word starts with an F. You expand your market presence. Exactly, Ben. They have decided that they are going to expand their footprint globally. They are going to be in locations where Burger King is not. Wendy's has decided that's what they're going to do, and I think I have them flipped around. I think it's Burger King that's expanding internationally, and it's Wendy's that is concentrating more on customer service, lowering costs, increasing profits, and thus impacting the stock price immediately. Both of them have risks. Both of them have risks. Let's take a look at it. In the short run, it seems like Wendy's, and we're going to make Wendy's the company that is launching more and concentrating more domestically here in the U.S., Wendy's is going to have a lot more profit. They're going to also, by virtue of their concentration on customer service, they may expand their footprint here in the United States. They may put a crimp in Burger King's sales here also. Because it seems like Burger King is going to spread themselves out a little too thin. And that's a risk on Burger King's part. Wendy's is also taking risks. They're going to spend some money, and they're going to spend some time training employees to improve all aspects of their QC, their quality controls, as well as their customer service, providing for a better experience. And they're sacrificing their international footprint. They're sacrificing their international footprint. Burger King has taken a clear stance on this and has said we are going to sacrifice some of our revenue here in the United States so we can expand into and extend our presence into the global market. and we think we can do it. That's a big risk. That's a big risk. They're going to basically give up some market share domestically and hope that they make it up internationally. The problem is, in international sales, it takes a little bit of time to develop some traction. But short term, Wendy's seems to be the horse to bet on. Maybe not. Maybe it's betting on that international customer. Maybe it's betting on that market share, that real long-term view that matters. Now, I'm going to give you some real-world advice here. When it comes to investments, when it comes to investing, whether it be in international sales or whether it be in investing in certain long-term investments that you may have personally or want to have, it should be a 10-year time horizon. 10-year time horizon, you mean that I need to be looking out 10 years? I can't even predict what's going to happen in the next 3 months. And that's true, it's a fair statement. But when it comes to international business, when it comes to investing for your portfolio, you need to have a 10-year time horizon. Because what happens is, if you have a 3-year, 5-year time horizon, which are fairly standard, and there's nothing wrong with that, you should have goals within that 10-year, 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, etc. But what happens is, if you have a 5-year time horizon or a 3-year time horizon, and that 3 year, 36 months comes up, and let me tell you, 36 months flies, and you haven't hit the metrics that you are to be measured by, your expectations are going to be shot. And maybe the expectations of your company, of you, and your success are going to be shot. If you put a 10-year time horizon on it, you're giving yourself a little bit of breathing room, but you're also really having to plan, not just for 3 years, but you're having to plan for 10 years. And let me tell you something. When you are putting a horizon of 10 years out there, your planning becomes so much more important for the long haul, not just the short haul. The short haul will end up taking care of itself. That's just my own personal experience. A 10-year time horizon is where you need to be looking. Now, let's go over the difference between an oblique attack and a frontal attack. Now, international business is directly tied and linear to marketing. And when you remember me talking about the 6 functions of a business, and within each one of these larger functions, you had strategy, you had operations, you had marketing. Here you had finance, R&D, and this one was international business. And I put this here, I added it. I added it because of its relevancy in today's marketplace, in today's competitive world. When you are looking at launching into a new country, your strategy and your tactics on how you launch are going to make all the difference in the world. Hence, we come up with an oblique attack. Now, let me tell you what a frontal attack is first, because I like the oblique attack, and this is what we're concentrating on. A frontal attack is you launch into a new country and you're going to throw a lot of money at advertising. You're going to be looking at mass market advertising. You're going to be looking at immediate market share. You want to have an immediate impact. You want to have an immediate impact on that market. Your business has money, they have resources, and you're going to go in there and you're going to throw money right at the market. And that's okay. Your strategy is to launch internationally. Well, that's okay. If you have money, tactically, you're going to throw this frontal attack at your market. There's a couple of problems with this, though, that I have. The first is, I remember doing business. I was in Bombay a few years ago. I remember sitting across from a character who was in the gray and black markets, mostly gray market. The problem with a frontal attack, and you can see where I'm going with this. The problem with the frontal attack is what? Tell me what the problem with the frontal attack is if you're dealing with a country where the gray market accounts for 70% of all transactions of consumer products or household goods or whatever it is. What's the problem with the frontal attack? It doesn't factor into the gray market, you're right. Price. Well, how about this? And Ben, you're zeroing in on a little bit. I'm a big legacy keystone competitor. Let's say I'm Coca-Cola. And I start throwing money at the market. Well, what if my product isn't fully integrated into the gray market yet? Well, then your advertising is going to individuals who are shopping also at the retail outlets, the legitimate market, we'll call it. But you're advertising to everyone. You're wasting dollars. You've wasted a lot of money. And let me tell you, in Bombay, I've heard this a few times. Hey, you want to get into the market? You better have some money behind you. And then in the same breath, I'm hearing, well, we can get you into the legitimate market, but we really want you to know that you need to get into the gray market. Well, wait a minute. How am I supposed to advertise to the gray market? You want me to throw money? So in international business, you've got decisions to make. That's not an easy decision. How is it that I'm supposed to throw all this money into the Bombay market and yet I'm not touching the consumers that are going to be buying in the gray market? So you have to be careful. I'm here to tell you, you have to be, and I've heard this in other markets. I have heard this in other markets. You have to be very, very careful. If your joint venture, and this is a sidebar to our frontal and oblique attack, but if your joint venture partner is the distributor, great. Check it off. Check that box. That's fantastic. And that's what you're really paying for. You're really paying for a partner that understands the landscape, that understands the cultural nuances better than you do, that man-on-the-ground approach, and they are going to help you get into the legitimate market, and they're going to facilitate the gray market for you as well. That's fantastic. But this is what happens in the real world every day, especially with emerging markets. I see this all the time. Your joint venture partner is making money on you by getting you into the right locations and the right markets, right? Okay, fine. Good. Deal done. But then you have to pull the product off the shelves. You have to pull the product off the market. You have to pull the product out of the market into the hands of the consumer. And then you're going to say to yourself, and I see this happen, I cannot tell you how many times I've been working with a company launching internationally, and they say, okay, good, we've got our distributor, we've got fulfillment, we've got warehouse, we've got shipping, we've got all of this set, Aaron. Okay. They're telling us that we need to have some deep pockets, or some pockets anyways, filled with money so that we can advertise and create that brand awareness. How do we do it? Well, why don't we go back and ask them if they can market for us? They can do the actual advertising because they know the customer. And that's a very natural progression to make. It's a very natural dot to connect. Your distributor understands the customer and the landscape and the cultural nuances, and so they should also be very capable of doing the advertising for you as well. And then you go back to them and you say, well, okay, you know, we touched on this a little bit, but would you also be willing to spend our money, do the advertising for us? They might not have any experience in advertising at all. What are they going to say? What are they going to say? Heck yeah, they're going to say, well, sure, we'll figure it out. We'll try it out. We'll do it. This is where the relationships in the international business go south. Because what happens is you now are giving them money. You have no idea where that money is going. They may be giving you a spreadsheet of where it's going, but the reality of it is, in an emerging market, you have no idea where that money is going. Very difficult for you to quantify your spend. Very difficult for you to track your spend, and then you're going to come back, and they're going to come back to you and say, well, you know, you did, we spent this money. Sales aren't where they want to be because you didn't give us enough money. Wait a minute. We didn't give you enough money. We gave you plenty of money. You don't understand. is the Indian market. They're used to high quality goods at very low prices. Okay? Well, you're competing against a lot of other high quality products at low prices. Yours is better, though, trust me. We just need to get the word out. We just need to, you need more money? Yes. Give us 2 years. And your distributor now realizes that they are making more money off you through advertising than they are actually through distribution. And that's where the money is, because that's easy work. That's easy work. Well, I'm going to pay my brother-in-law and my father-in-law and my cousin to identify how we're going to spend this money, but I got to pay them to figure that out. 3 months later, they get back to you because it's Indian time. And then their answer is, well, it's a complicated market, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, we're going to need more money. You see how complex international business can be? You trusted the people to do distribution, and now you're trusting them to actually also do marketing. And I would say a lot of joint ventures, I would say in my opinion, I could easily see 70%, 80% of all businesses utilizing their distributor also as their advertiser in international business, which I think is incorrect. That's not the way you do it. You need to have somebody in-house, or you need to hire somebody on the ground in Bombay that is separate from your distributor, that is going to work with your distributor, that is going to spend your money so you can quantify, and there is accountability. That is how you play ball. So if your JV partner is your marketer / advertiser, no go. How about that? No way. And it's such a natural progression. Because you need help, and your distributor has actually set you up. They're telling you, well, how are you going to spend money, or how much are you going to spend? Because our retailers are going to require you to spend a certain amount of money so you can pull it off the shelves, or so that you can get it out of the gray market into the hands of the consumer. And they're going to tell you that throughout the process of them identifying the distribution channel. And then you're going to naturally move into a new relationship with them where you have less control over your dollars, and you're going to have the outcome of losing the majority of your dollars. You know, in the United States, it used to be that, I used to hear that 50 cents of every dollar is wasted on, when you're advertising, 50 cents of every dollar is wasted, in general. Well, that's a terrible, terrible number. And wasted is such a strong word. There's always something to be said about brand equity and building that brand awareness to create brand equity. What I want you to look at, instead of doing this frontal attack, instead of working on the frontal attack, let's work on the oblique. Let's work on the oblique attack. Here's the answer. It's more customer-centric, focused. You're, instead of throwing money, let's contrast this with a frontal attack. Instead of just throwing money at the marketplace, you're lasering in on your customer. Make sense? Yes. And now you're not throwing away 50 cents of every dollar. You're also connecting with the customer. And the culture. You're connecting with the customer and the culture. Okay, Aaron, this sounds great. This is theoretical. You're giving me some good information. But how do you do it? Fair question. How do you do it? Fair question. Tim, did you just put that down and I didn't see it? Guerrilla marketing, you're absolutely correct. Darn it. Tim hit the nail on the head. Guerrilla marketing. Okay, Tim. Smarty pants. Oh, he has a... Well, you have the luxury of being in one of my other classes. All right, well, let's take another dive. All right, guerrilla marketing. Aaron, give me some more information on, okay, so I'm going to employ some guerrilla marketing tactics. So an oblique attack we're looking at some guerrilla marketing tactics. Is guerrilla with 2 R's? And 1, I forget. Anyways, guerrilla marketing tactics. And Artemis, you're right. You're assuming, and your answer is correct. You are assuming that you immerse yourself in the customer, in the culture, right? You're absolutely right. Now, how do you do that? It's called diffusion. It's called diffusion. You can leak the product like Apple does to journalists here. You can leak the gray market to establish hyper demand prior to entering the legit market. You could, but let's look at it like this. Diffusion, and you're right. Tim, you're not wrong. You're right, but let's look at diffusion. Diffusion, the definition of diffusion as I have it in my mind, is the fastest way to create brand awareness. The fastest way to create brand awareness. Now, you see where the frontal attack has the advantage of money. But how meaningful is it to your customers? What if you tried to touch them a little bit more than just on a billboard, or on a TV commercial, or on a radio spot? See, this is where Tim had it right. Diffusion, the fastest way to create brand awareness, in my opinion, going into a new market is going to be to touch the consumer more personally than a billboard. And you can do that in numerous different ways, and that's the beauty about guerrilla marketing. I know it's going to sound a little hokey, but I'm going to put it right here. And I've seen this work. A contest. When Betty Crocker wanted to launch into the United Kingdom, they coincidentally also had a new product, and they wanted to test it. And they wanted to create brand awareness. Nobody had ever heard of Betty Crocker before. It was like 1950 or something like that. And they said, well, okay, we've got money. We could throw money at the market and hope that people buy the product. And that's our frontal attack, and that's what everybody keeps telling us to do. And that's what madmen do. Right? It's all about spending the money. Well, they said, well, let's put that on hold. Let's not spend all of our money just yet. Let's see if we can create some awareness first. Bingo, bango, bongo. Wait, how do you do the light bulb? Well, the light bulb goes off, it says what? Well, a light bulb goes off and some noise pops up in your head. Bing! Diffusion. They said we're gonna try to create a contest. So what we've done is we have created a pre-made pie crust. What we're going to do is we're going to test this pre-made pie crust in the UK. And what we're going to do is to get people to buy it is we're going to give away this pie crust for free, and we are going to hold a contest where we allow, and at the time it was women that were doing a lot of the pies, we're going to allow as many women as they want to make a pie with our pie crust, and the best pie wins whatever. The second best was, we're going to have like 40 or 50 different prizes. Do you know how many women signed up for this pie contest? And again, before I go into that, who is the most powerful person in the world? Who's the most powerful person in the world? That's right, Ben. Mom. Mom is the most powerful person in the world. So, they're doing a pie contest for women, for moms who control roughly 7 or 8% of the household budget. Daily and monthly expenditures, yearly expenditures. They were inundated with contestants. They had 3,000 women sign up in the first week. That's a huge number. Do you think that they were interested? Do you think they were interested in the pie crust? Not so much. They were interested in being able to get into a contest that allowed them to present their secret ingredient pie. And the pie crust became so convenient for them that it then spread. And that's how Betty Crocker launched into the United Kingdom, through an oblique guerrilla marketing tactic of diffusion, where they allowed for a contest, where they gave pie crust away. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Now let's contrast that though. What if they would have actually spent? And at the time it would have been tens of thousands of dollars, not millions. It would have been tens of thousands of dollars. What would their return have been? What would their return on investment have been? Would it have been tens of thousands of dollars or millions or whatever with their return? No, probably not. It would have been a lot longer time frame that they would have been looking at. This diffusion created awareness so quickly. Did they have a pie eating contest? Let's see, wait a minute. Tim's got something before that. Check out the I'm getting hungry. Did I tell you guys that in the real world, in certain countries, you have what we call expedite costs? I know we talked about expedite costs. I'm not saying that you can impact your grade in this class with expedite costs, but I am telling you it could be considered through pastries. The currency that I value most is pastries. I would like to see some real-world application. I'm not saying that it will impact your grade, but you never know. It could have an impact. I don't know. I'm just saying. All right. So, what was it that Tim had stated? That check out the Guerrilla Marketing every spring. Folgers Coffee offers free copies of the Passover Haggadah with purchase in supermarkets. 50 million copies in print. Wow. That's right. That's awesome. I like that, Tim. And did they have a pie eating contest? I don't know, but I want to be part of the pie eating. I want to be part of the judging of pies. In fact, I think I'm going to hold a pie contest this fall. That's all there is to it. Does ASU have a pie contest, Robert? We do now. All right. And Tim, you're right. The golden ticket. How many more sales? You know, that's something that wasn't in the movie. But wasn't every kid and parent, wasn't everybody looking to buy a candy bar wrapped in gold and have the golden ticket? What do you think the actual revenues and sales of that thing? Oh, it went through the roof. You know what, Tim? I could give pastry points as currency. Instead of Bitcoin, or instead of investing into euros or yen or RMB, we might invest in pastries. Robert, are you big on pastries? All right. Robert is also big on pastries. The Folgers things, let's see, Tim says the Folgers thing spells out steps and prayers for the spring's holiday meal. Oh, wow. Copies of it are apparently passed from generation to generation, and Folgers has done it for 80 years. Wow. And let me tell you, is that touching the consumer? Is that helping? Does that show some kind of social enterprise? Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. You're not even buying for taste at that point. You're buying for tradition. That's a heck of a marketing strategy. It's a heck of a marketing tactic, I should say. Happy Meals. Yeah, you know what? I wish they would make adult Happy Meals. But I don't eat at fast food restaurants anymore. But I just love. I remember I must have been about 12 or 13 years ago. It was probably the last time I ever ate at a fast food restaurant. And the last thing I ordered, believe it or not, was a Happy Meal. I just love the prizes and the things inside. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be telling you that. But Cracker Jacks, my brother-in-law buys Cracker Jacks, and I know he's not buying the. In my eyes, I don't think he's buying the Cracker Jacks because of the taste. I think he's buying the Cracker Jacks because of the. How many of you have purchased Cracker Jacks and poured out the Cracker Jacks just to get to the price? That's guerrilla marketing. That's a form of guerrilla marketing. A company that I was launching internationally, they had a vitamin. It was a vitamin supplement. And this is how men are still boys in a way. Sometimes some things never change. But this vitamin supplement for men was one of those products that men would order every month. And what they decided to do, the company decided to do, is they said, well, you know what? To keep these customers, we know the product works, but to keep them from trying another product, let's throw in some shiny toys into the package. So when we send off our vitamin supplement to men, they're going to open it and they're going to see some shiny toy. And shiny being the key, believe it or not. Guys just love shiny stuff. Oh boy, look at this. It's a origami, tinfoil, whatever. Thanks for this link. You guys should, when you get a chance, take a look at it. What kind of shiny? Just like tinfoily or reflective. But believe it or not, the response they got back was, we love your product. And hey, I wait every month for the product because I get something new. I get some new shiny toy in there every month. Guys just never change. Seems like we're always kids. Now, the oblique attack is also relevant for small businesses. Uh-oh, my what? Oh. Thank you. The oblique attack also is very, very important for small, medium-sized enterprises, because what happens is larger companies, they have money to do the frontal attack. They have money to do the frontal attack. SMEs don't have those resources. SMEs don't have those resources. Yeah, Artemis. Yes. But I prefer the oblique attack even if you are a red ocean company. And we have talked about the difference between red ocean and blue ocean. This also, because even if you're a red ocean company, you are constantly looking at trying to separate yourself from your other red ocean competitors. And it keeps you in a blue ocean or a blue pond. It also does this. And I know this seems a little contrary to some of the marketing, but sometimes small companies want to stay under the radar. Why do small companies want to stay under the radar when marketing is all about projecting yourself to as many people as possible? To keep competitors away. You're close, Ben, you're close. You're very close. Not quite there. Why would you want to stay under the radar when you launch into a country for the first couple of years? Why would you want to stay under the radar and continually launch these oblique attacks, these guerrilla marketing tactics? To gather profits, you're close to harvest, you're circling, you're bull circling, you're almost there. You're almost there. How about Randy or Chris? Anybody have any ideas why you would want to stay under the radar? It seems counterintuitive to your marketing and advertising, doesn't it? I'll tell you why. Because when you launch an oblique attack, you're not showing all of your cards to those Keystone, Red Ocean competitors, and within a couple of years you have established a solid footprint, and by then you are embedded into the market. And it's too late for that Red Ocean competitor to knock you out. You have been gathering customers. You have been doing these guerrilla marketing tactics regularly. You have been spending your money wisely. You have the man on the ground approach. And you're under the radar for a couple of years. And by the time they know you're there, it's too late for them. By the time they know you're there, you're right there. You're right there in front of them. You see, international business isn't all about just mass market. You've got to be very aware. And here's the other thing. Let's just say that your competitors are already in the market. The biggest competitors in the Red Ocean are already there. Same thing applies that I just talked about. If you come in under the radar, by the time you develop market share, they're going to start saying, well, wait a minute, where the heck are our sales going? Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. This company is now taking sales away from us, and they're implementing guerrilla marketing tactics, which are more effective than mass market because you're touching the consumer, and you probably have a higher quality product, and your price point is going to be what? Is your price point going to be higher or lower than your Keystone competitors? It's going to be higher, Artemis. It's going to be higher. Because your product or service is typically going to be a little more customized. You don't want to be all things to all people. That's the reason why you launch into the guerrilla marketing and the oblique attack. Premium pricing. And it's always higher in the blue ocean. Your pricing should always be higher in the blue ocean. If you're a Red Ocean company, your costs are way down here. You're just going to throw money at the market. Apple, Betty Crocker, they are not companies that just throw money at the market. Apple, I remember when Steve Jobs, this was in the 1990s, I want to say it was 93, somebody can look it up. Steve Jobs said something like, the internet is going to change everything. I think that was his statement. The internet is going to change everything. And what he was referring to was small companies are going to be able to compete with big companies. It's going to level the playing field out. And a lot of people, I think, thought, well, Apple then obviously or clearly is going to spend a lot of money advertising on the internet. Banner ads, pop-ups, whatever, etc., etc. Nope. You cannot find one advertisement on the internet from Apple. You will not see a banner ad, you will not see a pop-up, you will not see you know, any mass email, whatever. You know why? Because that doesn't touch the consumer enough for them. That doesn't touch the consumer enough for them. They do commercial ads, but they act like a guerrilla marketing company still operating out of their garage because they are concentrating on PR and earned media. And as I think it was Tim that said earlier, give the product away for free or accidentally leave it in a journalist's hands and let them write about it, let them speculate about it. And that's right, Mac users don't get pop-ups. But the oblique attack is harder. It's easy to throw money at. It's easy to throw money at advertising. Anybody would take your money. Heck, I'll take your money. I'll throw a sign on my front lawn. Well, I don't know if the HOA would allow that, but I'll paint it on my roof. You see, anybody's willing to take your money. The oblique attack is harder. The oblique attack is also more effective. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And it's not easy. Not everybody does it. We need to think about the impact long-term that we're going to have in international markets. We're going to need to think about the impact that we're going to have even short-term. And I think that the diffusion process with an oblique attack, in my opinion, is heads and tails more effective than a frontal attack. Heads and tails more effective than a frontal attack. Get the buzz going. You're absolutely right, Artemis. Radio announced next week, allegedly. What was it that the radio announced? Because man, it takes time and research. What was it that the radio announced? I missed that. Apple iRadio. Oh, you're kidding me. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, moving right along. Any questions, comments? Because we're going to the next phase to compete with Pandora. Do you think Pandora is worried about that? Just curious. Oh yeah. I would be very, very nervous. Not because, I wouldn't be nervous because it's Apple. I would be nervous because Apple is all about PR. Apple is not about the mass market. Now they do it. When was the last time, they do it, but when was the last time you saw an Apple commercial? For me, I think it's been several months. I don't even know if I've seen an Apple commercial in the last year. Yeah, Pandora, that's a better point. If Pandora management, Robert, isn't nervous, Pandora shareholders are. It's down 15% today. Wow, that's a big whopper of a, and then they're going to be coming into the marketplace with their iTV or their TV. I don't know what it is. Pretty cool stuff. All right, moving right along. Moving right along. We talked about the long-term positioning. Part of your long-term 10-year outlook. This is what we referred to before in terms of investing into international markets. Your long-term outlook. When you're having to quantify this to your managers, You're going to quantify it two ways. New customers equals more sales. And this is, honest to God, truth. This is how you would want to quantify it. And there's one other aspect that you're going to use to your superiors that I'm going to give you that you're not going to get, they're not going to get from anyone else. This is a big one, the second one. Stability of revenues. What does that mean, stability of revenues? How is that's going to stabilize your revenues? How is international sales going to stabilize your revenues somewhat? And maybe Ben has it. Customer retention, economies fluctuate. There you go. Ben and Tim, you finished the thread of Ben's thought. This is linear to diversification. Diversification of markets. You see why, going back to the first or second class, I talked about, you know, people talk about launching into countries, and yeah, you need to go through regulatory control in a country in order to get to the market. You're going to need to think about expedite costs. You're going to think about all sorts of things, right? You're going to need to think about how to get through that red tape and government regulation. But once you do, then you go in and attack the market. And that market may only be in a certain city. That market may only be in a town. Let me give you an example. I believe it was Unilever who decided that they were going to get into the Indian market by selling soap, knowing that individuals did not have the money to buy lots of soap. There's 1.2 billion people in India. And they decided they were going to implement an oblique, and this is Unilever, a huge MNC, multinational corporation, a huge MNC. They could have just thrown the market at it, money at the market. They decided they were going to put the man on the ground. They hired individuals to go to the first-tier cities like Bombay, Delhi, etc., and then go to the second-tier cities like Hyderabad and Calcutta and etc., etc., and then go to the third and fourth-tier cities and towns and villages, in the villages. And they would create demonstrations of what soap would do for you in your hygiene and what that meant. And they did this primarily, was it to mothers or fathers? Who was their target market? Who would their target market have been? Absolutely. Absolutely. Men don't shower unless they have to. This is how men think. Am I going to be around a lot of people today? Okay, I better shower. That's okay. Maybe you do more. Now maybe you know more about the mindset of the psyche. So of course they went to women. And they now sell about 800 million bars of soap every month to the villages and towns. Their concentration was really in the villages and towns, where access to water and things like that aren't as readily available. At $1 a bar, which can be kind of expensive if you live in a village and you're subsisting on $4 or $5 a day, or $2 to $4 a day. And that's about what the average is in the rural parts of India. You live off of $2 to $4 a day. So $1 in a month is actually, believe it or not, it's a meaningful number. It's a significant number for that individual. 800 million bars of soap, 600 million bars of soap at $1 a piece. Wow, man, that's oblique marketing. There's no way they could have done mass marketing and actually got the traction in the pool that they ended up getting. But here's the other aspect that is very difficult to quantify, but it's very meaningful. You build brand awareness, and then after a few years, that becomes brand equity. So, although people may not buy the product today, the ones that do are going to be your customer, you're making money off them. You're building enough awareness that they may buy it in the future. That's not really quantifiable in the early stages. You build that brand awareness, and eventually you start getting more and more people to buy it. So you're building brand equity. So although your sales are going to be impacted with an oblique strategy, you're going to get a lot of people that still aren't purchasing simply because they don't trust the product enough. There's also one more aspect to a reason why you should have an international presence, especially if you are in the United States. If you have a product that's being manufactured here in the United States, how can that be an advantage if you launch it into China or India or Europe or someplace else? How can that be an advantage? Why is made in the USA an advantage? Why would it be an advantage? Associated with higher quality. You guys are absolutely right. In India, with some of the vitamins and supplements, and in China with their issues of quality, especially when it comes to medicine and baby food. We've heard about all of these things on the news. Things mixed in there as filler that shouldn't be in the human system, et cetera, et cetera. If you have the opportunity to buy something that's made in the USA, especially if it's ingestible, you might save your money just to buy it because you know it hasn't been corrupted, or in your mind, it has not been corrupted. It hasn't been manufactured in China. It hasn't been manufactured or produced in India. And the quality you're going to get is going to be what you're paying for, what you expect. You already have in built-in marketing if you launch into another country that's made in the USA. How about those apples? Built-in marketing. And in India, I'll take it a step further. English is one of the 21 official languages. Yes, that's right. In India, there are 21 official languages. You could go from one town to the next and not know what they're saying. You don't even need to change the label. They want to see. They want to see made in the USA. Because of oranges, were you trying to say organic? I don't know what you're saying. But nonetheless, you have built-in marketing if made in the USA. Oh, apples. Okay, got it. Apples and oranges, got it. All right, any questions or comments? Your 10-year outlook, you're going to be able to present your 10-year outlook and say, look, this is how it works. We launch into Brazil or Costa Rica or China or wherever it is that you're presenting. We're going to get new customers. We're also going to get, that's going to translate into more sales. We're also going to have some stability in our revenues because we have a diversified customer base, meaning that not all of our customers are going to be in the United States. They're going to be in different parts of the world. Do you think you're superior? Do you think that whoever you're presenting this to is going to be impressed by that? Absolutely. And not only that, while we are launching, we're going to create some brand awareness, which will end up being brand equity, meaning that we'll have a presence there that people trust. And because we're a U.S. manufacturer, let me tell you, we've got built-in marketing because it's made in the USA. Tim says, I think a lot of people, when they travel abroad, look for the McDonald's because they know they can trust the food. I don't know about that statement. I think sometimes people go to McDonald's for the novelty of it in other countries. That's what I think. A lot of people, American, you know, a piece of Americana in your backyard, a lot of people aspire to come to the United States and whatnot. I don't know. I'm going to look into that. I'm not going to say either way just yet, but I'm going to look into that. Built-in marketing is the last point here. Now, not only have we proven that you need to launch internationally, because your keystone competitors are already there. The red ocean is already there. But if you do it through an oblique attack, under the radar, you're going to develop market share, you're going to create that brand awareness, you're going to touch the consumer a little bit more, you're going to be able to charge more, a premium price, and you're going to, before you know it, you're going to be right here in the face of those large keystone competitors before they are able to act. That's good international business. I remember when I was a young kid, I used to hear, that's good business. That's good business. Well, you know what? I want you to add international to this. That's good international business. Because every business that you do here in the U.S., believe it or not, has some international component to it. It has some international component to it. Let's continue along with your 10-year plan. This is exciting stuff. I love this. I can't wait. Honestly, I can't wait for your emails. For those of you who know me and have had my classes, I keep sending you emails long after the class has ended. So I can't wait for your response when you decide to get into international business, what experiences you have. I really, really hope that you send me an email. But moving along to your 10-year plan, and this is all about now entering a country. Somebody correct me. What should I have said here? I was hoping that somebody would jump in. There you go. Thank you, Ben. And I know you all caught that. Entering a market. When it comes to culture, you're going to have, and I'll write this all down. When it comes to culture, that way you can use it in a sentence. You need to spell out the story. And I know it seems very simple, but each culture, each market is different. You're not going to tell the same story in France that you are in China, unless it's a luxury item. That's the only caveat. And that's the only caveat here. Unless it's luxury. Luxury items have that luxury, if you will, of resonating across markets with wealthier people. A Rolls-Royce is going to be the same story in the United States as it is in the United Arab Emirates, as it is in the United Kingdom, as it is in South Africa and Brazil. You're not going to have a different story. Like a Rolex, Artemis, you're absolutely correct. A Mustang, not, well, you know, that's a good point, Artemis. A Mustang isn't going to change their story too much because it's a muscle car, right? It's a muscle car. So it has a different, even though it's not a Rolls-Royce, it is a powerful vehicle. And they might not. So you kind of caught me there, Artemis. They might not change the story. They might not change the story. Because if you're buying a Mustang, you're not buying a Mustang just because it's any old car. You're buying a Mustang because of the power that it has. So they might not change the story. Touche. Good point. Good points. So when you're entering a new market, we need to be cognizant of the story and the culture that, I mean, it could be an offensive story in one country, and in another country it might not be offensive at all. Let me give you an example. In China, I've got a good buddy there right now. Got a good buddy in China, and it's kind of funny because in the United States, and he's actually Canadian, and one quick tidbit, when you're traveling abroad, this is a tidbit, I'll write it down too. When you're traveling abroad and you see someone who you think is an American, don't ask if they're American. Don't ask if they're from the U.S. Because if they're Canadian, Canadians have a little fit about it if you call them an American or a U.S. citizen. On the flip side, if you approach somebody who you think is American and you call them Canadian and it happens to be an American, Americans don't care. Typically. They'll just say, no, I'm from the U.S. Canadian might have a little fit, and that comes from my experience traveling abroad with Canadians. Okay? So, that's a little sidebar here. What was I talking about? Where was I, Robert? You remember? No. Shoot. What was I going into? My buddy who's Canadian in China, they think he's American. He's constantly correcting them that he's Canadian. And in the U.S., we give each other a little bit of a hard time. We laugh at each other. We laugh at ourselves. It's kind of common knowledge, believe it or not, globally, that we don't take ourselves too seriously all the time. Not saying anything negative about us. It's just that, we can laugh at ourselves. We can look at ourselves and laugh a little bit. Well, in China, he was there having dinner with family, and they were making fun of his accent, his Mandarin accent. In China, they speak Mandarin. They also speak Cantonese in Hong Kong. But they were making fun of his accent, and he got a little bit, he got a little uncomfortable because the whole room is laughing at him, and they're looking at him and laughing at him. But they knew that they could do it, And so then one of them said something in English, and it wasn't said or pronounced properly. And so he, in turn, started laughing at the individual who incorrectly pronounced the English phrase or the English term, and they got really upset and left. So, they don't take themselves so lightly. They take themselves, maybe in certain cases, very seriously. Now, this isn't all people, but these are, in global business, you have to have some kind of general baseline, right? And so, in his email, he emailed me and said, it's kind of, it is about saving face, and they seem fine with making fun of me all day long, but when I make fun of them, they get really upset and storm out. And so be aware that when you're telling your story, what may be okay here in the U.S. is not necessarily okay in the country. All right? Okay. I also want to point out that oftentimes the frontal attack, if you ask me, in my experience, has a higher degree of failure. Why would a frontal attack have a higher degree of failure? Somebody tell me that. Why would a frontal versus a, and that doesn't look like it came out too well. Why would a frontal attack have a higher degree of failure? Anyone? Bueller, anyone. Why would a frontal attack have a higher? Because it costs so much. There you go. And you don't know where your money is going, number two. And you don't know that it's not being laser focused. It's all things to all people. So you're wasting a lot of dollars. And you haven't necessarily, even if you have taken in the account of the culture and have culturally adjusted your phrases so that it's not eat your fingers off instead of finger looking good, that you could end up advertising to a bunch of people who don't care. There's a lot of reasons. You don't have that personal connection. And then the feedback. Here's the thing. In international markets, you don't have the hard data that you do here. You can't say, well, this works in the United States, and so if we just continue along this, well, you can do that in the U.S., but you can't do that in China. You can't do that in India. It's very difficult. Because of what? Because of the gray market. Right? How do you get data out of the gray market? I'm going to tell you something. I am waiting for a company or an individual to start gathering market data in the gray market. The person who starts gathering hard data in the gray market is going to make a gazillion dollars. It's difficult to do. It's time consuming, but let me tell you, it can be done. To generate a survey, there you go. If you could generate a survey in the gray market, you could get people to answer honestly, or if you could be in the gray market and see what people are buying and how frequently, and if you could gauge the actual turn rates, because the reality of it is our markets revolve around turn rates, right? How is it selling? If it's not selling and you got a bunch of inventory, well, forget about it. Yeah. Artemis, if you could start generating hard data for retailers and manufacturers and advertisers and marketers for other countries in the gray market, you're sitting on a gold mine. If you can gather data, you can sell that data to international conglomerates, to small companies. You can sell that data so that they can use it to figure out how they're going to implement their oblique or even frontal attack. And, you know, the gray market isn't as dangerous. I mean, the black market might be dangerous, but the gray market isn't nearly, the gray market, I mean, think about it. The gray market is a huge percentage of sales and GDP of any country outside of the United States and maybe some countries in Europe. So, I mean, this is where mothers and daughters and sons and fathers are going to go get goods and services and ice cream, right? So it might not be as dangerous. Now, the black market, okay, you got me there. That may be a place that you don't want to get into. And I don't know that that data would actually be relevant other than to know how much counterfeiting is going on. I don't know how relevant that would be in terms of helping to generate a 10-year outlook or a guerrilla marketing plan. Why? It's a good question. Why is the gray market not so prevalent in the U.S.? Why is the gray market not so prevalent in the U.S.? You know, those are things like flea markets and parking swaps. We're starting to see those things emerge a little bit. And you see them emerge when the economies are down, because people can negotiate. And here in the U.S., retailers don't want you to negotiate. They don't want you to ask for a discount. Here's the price, there you go. Pay for it. Almost everything I buy, no matter what it is, whether it's shoes, and it's not so much haggling, it's just, hey, you know what? If I can save $1 or $2 or 10 or 20, why not? Why is it the only time that you negotiate is when you buy a house or a car? That doesn't make any sense. And you go to other countries, they love Americans. They love Americans. Why do other countries love Americans? And eBay is a sort of a gray market. You're absolutely right. That's right, Ben, because we don't, and you know what? Haggle, it even goes beyond that. We don't even think about negotiating. I'm going to give you a hard lesson right now in negotiations. A hard lesson right now in negotiations. And we're going to have our next class is going to be about negotiating against other cultures. But here's a hard lesson, and I'm going to leave you with this lesson, and then we'll continue on tomorrow. How many of you have done a negotiation, small or large, in another country, and you ask for a price? You're haggling. You ask for a price, and immediately, they say no. Can't do it. In the U.S., we look at that and we say, okay, I guess that means we're done. I guess that's it. That's completely wrong. Go to France, go to Nigeria, go to Israel, go to China, go to India. That is very common practice for, I hear what you're saying, let's go further. No means let's continue. I'm just getting started in negotiating with you, so my first response is no. It's not, no, I am not going to sell it to you at that price. It's no, but let's talk. Everybody wants to win. No in another country when you're negotiating, how many times have you gone to, say, this might be more relevant, some of you have gone to Mexico, and you go and you start haggling, and they say no, and then 2 seconds, you walk away, and 2 seconds later they're chasing you. It's not that you're a good negotiator, trust me. It's that you think, it's that you think that that's it. Okay, I guess they said no, we better get going. And then they come after you like, oh, wow, what did I just figure out here? Well, maybe if I do it again, they'll come after me again, and they do. The problem is you're negotiating with the wrong people. Those people don't have any money to negotiate. You just took $3 out of the $10 item that you're going to purchase, and so they ended up making about 4 cents. In other countries, you negotiate, and when they say no, that means let's start. You have to translate that into let's start, not we're done here. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a situation where they said no, and then you start maneuvering. Okay, well, where is it that you want to be? Well, let me tell you, this is where I need to be. Oh, no, gosh, oh, no, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten that response. Oh, my gosh. You know, in another culture, in another market where they're just like, no, no, no. And they're doing this shooing you away, like you should leave. That's when you stay. That's when they are saying, let's go. Let's get some. Let's keep moving. We got to keep going. Believe it or not, that's what they're saying. Has anyone experienced that? If you haven't, that's okay. But trust me, it's a hard lesson. That is an invitation to start negotiating. In the U.S., if somebody does this, you feel insulted and you, wow, oh, gosh, well, what a jerk. I'm leaving. Well, in other countries, they think you're a jerk if you left. Wow, what an idiot. She just walked out when I said no. Don't they understand that means let's talk? Why is it the only time we negotiate is when we're buying a house or a car? That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Think of all the money you let go right out the door because you didn't ask for a discount on the shoes. Hey, I buy a lot of stuff. We all buy a lot of stuff every day. Think of how much money you would save if you asked for a discount. The only place that I don't ask for a discount is the dollar store. And I love the dollar stores. I know, you guys, some of you won't shop them. I love the dollar stores. I don't negotiate. Yeah, 20 bucks, and man, I feel like I got like a gazillion things. I go to Costco, and 20 bucks gives me one, maybe some carrots, blueberries, and some croissants. Yuck. Well, the croissants are good. But we're going to talk about negotiating tomorrow, 11 a.m. Arizona time, and I'm going to teach you two different types of negotiations. Two different types. And once you're aware of them, you'll know when to turn them on and when to turn them off. You'll know which one to turn on at the right time and which one to turn off at the right time. Tomorrow's class is all about negotiations. So be here, 11 a.m. See you soon. Same time, same channel, different time. Thanks. Artemis, Ben, Bob, Chris, Tim, Randy, etc., etc. Who else? Nick, Steven,